Welcome, everyone. We're going to get started here. Today, we're going to be talking about Jira Administration for beginners. So, if this is your very first time, welcome. This is a part, technically a first part, but it is the third time I've been doing this. This is the March cohort. And if you're new around here, my name is Alex. I'll get a little bit more into the details of who I am in a minute. Most importantly, Jira administrators, you are here because this is the first time that you've done your administration. Maybe you're new to it. Maybe you've been doing it for 6 months, or maybe you are even a seasoned professional. Um, I'm here for all of it, and but we're really going to be focusing on the administrative perspective, specifically for beginners. So if you are a little bit more advanced, feel free to drop questions in the chat. All of this is being recorded here on YouTube, so I'm going to be able to follow up a little bit later. So if you have some challenging questions for me, feel free to use that chat there to be able to engage with me. I typically have somebody here with me monitoring. I don't think that's going to be the case today. So I'm going to try my best to take a couple of breaks here and there in between my presentations to look at your questions and be able to address them. If there's some easy ones or just ones that are appropriate for this particular audience, I'll make sure to call them out and answer them. But again, don't be shy. If you have some hard questions, some advanced questions, just ask away. I'd be more than happy to let you know that this will be covered in a follow-up, or I'll just follow up with a separate video at a different time. But anyways, let me share my screen and we'll get started here. If you've never attended one of my trainings, let me just let you know that the way I do this is I have a very, very small little PowerPoint presentation just to go over some of the details. But we're going to be in the tool. We're going to be inside of Jira. We're going to be learning. So if you have Jira, I recommend you get Jira up and running right now. I'll log into your Jira instance. Everything I'm going to teach you today can be done in the free version. But any Jira, specifically cloud, is what we're going to be focusing on. Although a lot of this will apply over to data center versions of Jira as well. But the focus is Jira administration in the cloud for beginners. Welcome to the March 2024. Let's just jump into it. In the chat, though, if you want to just get the conversation going, let me know who you are, where you're logging in from, and most importantly, don't forget to drop those questions there in the chat. So let's talk about what we're going to be learning about today. We're going to very briefly touch on projects. Very briefly, just want to give you a quick 1 to 2 minute just understanding of what a project is, so that the rest of this whole training makes sense. So we'll be taking a look at that. Then we're going to jump into what I call the most common configurations and activities that you do as an administrator. These items right here: issue types, workflows, custom fields, and screens. That is every Jira administrator's bread and butter. I am doing this all day, every day, hundreds and hundreds of times a day. And so I'm going to give you some tips and tricks from the field here, from the pro, if you will, and just give you just as much information as I can about what it takes to do this like Jira administrative thing, and do it well, do it in a fun and enjoyable way, because I really do love this part. This is my favorite part of the job, is creating these screens, creating workflows, working with teams to figure out what is the right combination, what is the right setting, what is the right Jira to help that team achieve their business goals. So all of that happens here in these specific topics here. Now, again, this is just a beginner's course, right? There's so much more, and even within these topics, there's so much more to discuss. So make sure you stick around to the end. We'll be talking about some next steps for you all. Now, before we get too far into this, why should you listen to me? Who is this Dr. Jira that you're watching on the internet, and why do you care? Well, my name's Alex, as I mentioned. I have a bachelor's in computer engineering, master's in systems engineering, certified ethical hacker, and most importantly, and as of most recently, I finally obtained my very first Atlassian certification. I obtained the ACP 520, the admin for the cloud. And so I'm very excited that I'm officially, and I can proudly say that I am an Atlassian certified professional. My background is I've been using Jira for the last 7 to 8 years now, and I use it rigorously. I spend about 12 hours a day in the world of Jira. And yeah, there's this, I like to tell people I spend an unhealthy amount of time in Jira, not only as an administrator, that is a lot of what I do, but also kind of like a coach, right? There's a certain finesse in configuring the tool. That's awesome. But there's even more finessing that I do with respect to how to use the tool. So I do a lot of Scrum Master um, product manager, product owner, just developer utilization of the tool, kind of like a project manager. So I do a lot of that as well. So again, both sides of the coin here of Jira, but this particular course is focused on the administration portion. Then let's talk about YouTube for a second here. So as you may have noticed, you're on the Jira Life. This is my podcast that I co-host with the Jira guy. And if you're new to this channel, if you're new to the Jira Life, we are 109 subscribers away from hitting 1,000 subscribers. And it would be so awesome. There's 42 of you here in the chat right now. It would be so awesome if each one of you took a second here to just hit that subscribe button. It would significantly help us leapfrog forward and get even that much closer to hitting our goal of 1,000 subscribers. So if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, please, please, please consider subscribing to the channel, as we're so close, right? We're just 100 away. But if you guys smash that subscribe button right now, we're just going to be that much closer. So that would be my ask of you. If you can just take a second here to smash the subscribe button, it would significantly help the channel grow. But if you are already subscribed and you're like, hey, Alex, what else do you have available? Well, feel free to scan that QR code there with your phone. You'll see a link to my link tree. I have merch stores. I have paid courses. I have free courses. I have connections with LinkedIn. So if you want to send me a connection request or follow me on LinkedIn, all of the resources that I have available are in that QR code there. So make sure you take a second here, pause the screen, scan that QR code, and most importantly, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. All right, so let's jump into projects. Again, I'm just going to really, really quickly talk about the projects. And I just want to mention the configuration types, right? Because if you're new to Jira, especially in the cloud, you might not be appreciative of how projects work in Jira Cloud, because they work a little bit different in the cloud than they work on like the data center version of Jira. So when we're talking Jira projects in the cloud, we have a couple of different templates. Now, there's 5 different versions of Jira in the cloud. There's Jira Service Management, Jira Align, Jira Work Management, Jira Product Discovery, and the one we focus on is Jira Software. And so we're going to be in Jira Software, and when we focus specifically on Jira Software, there's a bunch of different templates. Now, Scrum and Kanban are the 2 most common templates that as administrators, we create. And so I would say that like some 90% of the projects that I create on a daily basis are typically going to be a Scrum or Kanban style. So if you're a Jira admin and you're making a different type of template, that would be something that I would keep my ear out for, because those are the 2 most popular ones and the 2 that I configure the most. Now, I'm not saying any of the other ones are wrong, but I would say that in the world of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of projects that I create or have created, those 2 are going to be the most common ones. So with that said, though, once you pick either Scrum or Kanban and we're in this Jira Software, we're met with a interesting fork in the road, and you have to pick between team managed and company managed. Now, out of the box, most teams, especially the bigger ones, go with the team managed project. Now, team managed projects are great, but from a Jira administrator's perspective, in my opinion, they are a nightmare, because they're siloed projects. They're their own independent project that don't share configurations, they don't talk to each other, and they're designed for any user, regardless of their technical skill level, to be able to go in there and make some changes, be dangerous enough to be productive, but still be able to use Jira and tweak it in the way that works for them. The problem is when you grow in your company and you scale your company and you add more teams, more projects, even more administrators, these team managed projects have a significant limitation. And so the company managed ones are really what are designed for us, for Jira administrators. These company managed projects allow us to pull all the levers. We have full control of everything inside of the wonderful world of Jira. And so if you're a Jira admin and you want to just have total control, these company managed projects are the ones that you're going to be managing. And another benefit that you get from these company managed projects is that you can share the project configurations, which is a blessing for a Jira administrator, because anytime that you can standardize, anytime that you can make everybody kind of march to the same beat, then this is going to be really, really good for you as an admin, because it's less snowflake and it's less unique configurations that you have to worry about, and you can just standardize. So company managed projects are going to let you do that. And that's kind of all I'll talk about these projects here, because what we're going to jump into now is I'm going to start at the top. I'm going to start at the top of how how everything works as an administrator. Now we're going to kick things off with issue types. And the reason the project is important because the project is the house. It's the foundation for everything. And so now that I kind of given you my spiel on the different types of projects and the difference between company and company and team managed projects, we're going to jump into these, again, these 80% of the configurations that I do on a day-to-day basis. So let's jump into Jira, and we're going to talk about issue types because as a Jira administrator, here we are inside of Jira, but as a Jira administrator, we spend a lot of time configuring this tool. And there's so many different ways to configure this tool, so many different interpretations, but I'm going to show you like the common ways that I do it, some of the techniques that I use, and hopefully you walk away with a better understanding of how to make this simple, right? How to be an administrator of Jira without feeling overwhelmed, without feeling like there's so much to do, right? Because fundamentally, those items that we're going to be talking about today, this is the core. This is, if you can master these topics that we're going to be covering, that is essentially all you need. So in the cloud, there's a gear up here. You're going to become very, very familiar with this gear. So familiar that when Atlassian changes the UI, I notice right away. And hopefully you notice right away as well. And so this gear is your gateway. This gear on the top right corner as an administrator will take you into the world of possibilities, the world of Jira configurations. And it's a gear that you should become very, very familiar with. Now, if the menu option that popped up for you does not look like this, if all you see is your Atlassian account or personal Jira settings, then my friends, you're not a Jira administrator. If you are a Jira administrator, you will see these menu options right here. And to take it even higher to the next level, if you are a site administrator, you will also see these items at the bottom for user management and billing. Now, we're going to be focusing on issues because that is really the core. This is the main things that you are doing as a Jira administrator, but there is enough to talk about everything. So if you're interested in the chat, do please feel free to let me know if you're interested in learning some of these other items. We're just looking for feedback so that we can create future courses for you all. But today we're going to be focusing on issues. And so I'm going to click on that and just, again, get very familiar with this gear and going to issues because that is something that I probably do like 1,000 times a day. So if you're new to Jira administration, this is something you're going to want to get familiar with. Now, over here on the left-hand side, you're going to notice that we have a bunch of options. And interestingly enough, they're very similar to the structure that I picked: issue types, workflows, custom fields, and screens. And when you look at it over here, we're going to have issue types, workflows, custom fields, and screens. And again, we're covering the basics here. I'm going to give you just enough to be dangerous, but please feel free to drop questions, as I mentioned at the beginning, if you are just confused on something or just you're curious about something. But we're going to kick off with issue types. So issue types in Jira allow you to essentially capture information. They're little buckets that you put things into it. And the issue type is the fundamental. You want to get your issue types correctly because everything else, the workflows, the screens, the custom fields, the making things required, all of that is centered around the issue type. Now, by default, Jira ships with a handful of issue types that for most, it's enough. You get yourself an epic, a story, a task, a bug, and a subtask. Those are the 5 default issue types that are available to you. But because Jira is such a powerful tool and it's such a customizable tool, you're able to create anything you want. So as a Jira administrator, when you come into this issue type section here, you will have this add issue type button. And if you click on that add issue type, you're able to add literally anything you want. So some teams want to manage like risk. Other teams want to manage testing or test cases or something with respect to UAT. Other teams don't like the word bugs and they want to make defects or they want to make incidents. And so being able to add those issue types is something that is very, very important because it empowers your teams, the teams in the field, the teams that are actually using Jira on a day-to-day basis to deliver business value, to deliver revenue for your company so that we can all stay employed. It all is rooted here with these issue types. So as I mentioned, you do get 5 default ones, but whenever you want to make a new one, all you got to do is click on this add issue type. And what you create, what these are, is really up to you and the business. Now, a pro tip that I will tell you, some cautionary words. you want to be careful because I like to tell people that the hardest thing about being a Jira admin is not the technical skills, it's not the where to know where the buttons are that you got to click and the order in which you got to click them. That's easy. That's learnable. I can talk about it for a couple of hours and you can walk away being an expert in that. But the hardest part about being a Jira administrator is knowing how to guide and coach your team for success because your team is going to ask for everything. They're going to ask for so many things, so many requests. They just want their world to be easy. And they're going to ask you for some very, very interesting things. And it's your job to kind of keep everybody, I wouldn't say standardized, but in a healthy manner. Because there's a lot of interpretation, there's a lot of leeway that you can do as a in Jira, and as an admin, you don't want to just do everything that everybody asks because if you do that, if you just create issue types called like cheeseburgers, right? If you create an issue type called cheeseburger, it will let you. I can click add, and now I have an issue type called cheeseburger. But what does that do? What does this cheeseburger do for our teams, right? Like you want to be mindful. You want to make sure that there's intent and purpose and reason behind each of these issue types because just because you have the powers to the kingdom here, some people might try to take advantage of it. So you want to make issue types here that make sense, that truly add clarity, that add value, right? And as you can see, it's really, really easy to make them. All you got to do is click on that add issue type and you're able to make it and create it. And now I have a cheeseburger. Now, the next tip that I'll give you is that usually when you create these, they have this really depressing, in my opinion, very depressing gray icon. I wish Atlassian would change that default one. But if you, after you create it, it's like a two-step process. After you create your issue type, you can click on edit. And I highly recommend you select image here under issue type avatar and change it to something else. Click update. Because if you don't do that, then a lot of your issue types are all going to have the same bland, gray, depressing circle. And your team over time will come to recognize the little lightning bolt, the little check mark, the little circle, the little red circle, right? And so it's important that if you have multiple custom issue types, that you try to be unique in what you give your team so that they don't confuse because Jira will leverage the icon a lot. It is more visible than the name. And so your team will learn to associate an icon, a picture with what type of information they have in there. And so you want to be mindful that every time you click this add issue type button, it will standard or default to that bland gray circle. And trust me, you don't want to be scrolling down this list and just have nothing but gray bland circles. So get creative. You do have the ability, if you have that artistic background, you have the ability to, as you can see here, upload a new avatar. So if you want to get very creative with your branding or something like that, you can definitely take advantage of that as well, or just pick from the limited options down here. Now, once you create an issue type, once you do that, it becomes available, right? It just, imagine that you're like at a buffet and this is just another entree, something you can go up to the tray and just put it on your plate and be able to consume it, be able to use that issue type. Because if you don't do this here, then you can't move forward with the rest, right? So it all starts right here. And so once you have an issue type available, you have two ways of then utilizing that issue type. So the first method is the, what I'll call in air quotes, correct method. And when you come over here to issue type schemes, you will notice that every Jira project has a scheme associated to it. And you can see the project relationship over here on the right. So what you need to do is you just need to go to the scheme that you want to edit. So I'm going to go into this Earth Kanban demo one here and just randomly picking one. And you can click on the three dots and you can click on associate. Definitely not associate. You want to click on edit. My bad. This is always a thing with Jira. It's always a crapshoot. You never know if it's going to be an edit or if it's going to be a configure because some screens do it one way or other screens do it another way. So get used to making that mistake that I just made. But click on that edit, and this is going to take you to this menu here where you're going to be able to find our cheeseburger that we made. So here's our cheeseburger, and you're going to be able to just simply drag it over to the left. And what's in here, you're going to hit click save. Now, I'm going to go one step further. Before I click save, I'm going to prove to you what I'm doing. So if I hit the create button here and I go to that project that we're just looking at, and I click on this drop down, you will notice that there's no cheeseburger here. Okay. But once I hit the save button here, okay, and all I did was move that issue type from the right and I moved it to the left. Now, when I hit the create button and I hit the go into the right project, and then I go to the drop down, you'll see that I have my cheeseburger. So that is technically, again, the correct way of doing this. You're doing this at the scheme level, which then any other project that's using this scheme, again, these company managed projects shine here, will inherit or have that issue type available. Now, the second way, the way that I actually prefer doing it, the way that I typically do it almost every time, is I go into the project itself. So I'm going to go into that project. I'm going to get rid of it. I go over here to the project settings. And then under issues, you need to wait for this to load. This always catches me. I've done this like a million times, and every single time, the the refresh catches me. So wait for it to load so that you don't have to refresh or do anything wonky. And you click on types under issues, and when you go there, you will then see your cheeseburger. So all you need to do is click on the actions, click on your edit issue types, and from there, we're going to be able to either add another issue type, or in my case, I just want to remove it because I don't like the cheeseburger. Actually, I do love cheeseburgers. I don't want it for this particular case. And that's it. So when I hit save there, now when I go back to the create button and I'm still in my Earth one and I hit the drop down, you'll notice that cheeseburgers are gone. So those are the two more common ways. And that's essentially how you add and remove um, issue types. And the reason I'm starting here, right? The reason why issue types, as I mentioned, is a fundamental thing is because when you're looking at this specific screen here, you'll notice that the issue types influence, or I should say, are influenced by the workflows, the field configurations, and the screens, all the topics that we're going to be covering here in the next 40 minutes. So it is very, very foundational that you get the right issue types going first, because then that will be your gateway to getting everything else correct. And so again, this is why we started with a cheeseburger or as an issue type. Now, one more thing that I want to talk about here on issue types before we leave. If you're on premium, if you're on the premium version of Jira software, you also get an issue type hierarchy. And what this allows you to do is, again, this is premium only and a little bit more advanced. I just want to call it out. Usually I lead with this one, but I feel like everybody gets confused. So I'm not even going to lead with it this time. I'm just going to mention it. But if you are on the premium version of Jira software, you have the ability to manipulate your hierarchy. And so by default, something that you should know as an administrator is that the epic is at the highest level. That becomes like the ultimate parent. And then we have stories, tasks, and bugs below the epic. Those can all be children of the epic. And then below the story, task, or bug, we have the subtask. And again, the story, the task, and the bug become the parent of that subtask. Now, Atlassian's been restructuring this for the last year, year and a half. And I think they're close. I think they're finally almost in a usable state here. But you officially have just the parent-child relationship from the subtask all the way up as high as you want to go. Now, what's very common, a lot of teams like SAFe, the Scaled Agile Framework. And so you can see that I created an initiative issue type. And I have a video that kind of walks you through all this. So I didn't mention it here, right? But if definitely go back to my QR code, because one of the things that I also have, that I should have mentioned it, but I was so busy telling you about the Jira Life. So make sure if you're watching right now and you haven't subscribed to the Jira Life, now's another great chance to subscribe to the Jira Life. But I also run a second channel. It's called ATech Tech Tutorials. I have a little bit over 15,000 subscribers there. And in this channel, this is my main channel. This is kind of the main thing that I do here on YouTube is this hosting and running this particular channel. I have almost 600 videos on Jira tutorials. So make sure you come over here, check out the live section. The live section, they're a little old now. They're about a year and a half old now. But I have coverage on pretty much all the basics of Jira administration that you need to know. And so they're all about an hour long. So if you're interested in taking your skills again there to the next level, don't feel like you're not getting enough in this class, because again, this is supposed to be an introductory, a kind of get your feet wet type of class. But definitely lots going on in this channel. So make sure you go over there and subscribe to that channel as well if you haven't already. So anyways, I have a video that covers this in more depth, but I just wanted to mention it that this is the hierarchy and you're able to manipulate this. But I explicitly wanted to call out that you should know, as a Jira administrator, you should know that you have epics at the top, then stories, tasks, or bugs. And you should really know that stories, tasks, and bugs And anything else that you create, if you go back to this issue types, you'll notice that there's a number, right? You'll notice that my cheeseburger has a 0. So by default, when you create a new issue type, it is automatically a 0. And so the only way to manipulate it, you can to a 1 or to a 2, is to come to the hierarchy and change this order. And so this is, again, an advanced thing. So definitely go make sure you check out one of my other videos. But this is essentially something that you would want to work on. Okay. And then the last thing I'll talk about this is the subtask. So you do have the ability to create additional types of subtask issue types. And what makes subtask issue types unique is that they will never show up in the create button. This subtask that I have, this risk, both of these, you'll notice that they don't show up here. And it's not because I didn't put them in that layout or that issue types that we looked at earlier, but it's simply because as a subtask, the only way to create them is to go into an existing issue and then create the subtask from there. So again, just want to let you know that if you do want that, right? Basically, in other words, these issue types can never exist on their own. They always, 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 always have to be tied with a parent, whether that's our cheeseburger or something like your story, your task, or your bug, always has to be there. So any questions on this? Let me take a quick minute here. I spent a little bit longer than I would have liked on issue types. We're going to speed through the rest. But let's see. We have a couple questions here. Again, usually I have somebody here helping me out, but my homies are apparently sleeping or in meetings. But Shira says, hi, and thank you for this training. Can you explain how to choose what type of project is best for my team? So Shira, this is open to interpretation, right? This is really, what is your team trying to achieve, right? And it really depends. But I will tell you that you cannot go wrong. The documentation and the way Jira is intended to be used is with a company managed Jira software Scrum project. If you do that, you will unlock all the power of Jira. Company managed software Scrum. Okay. Now, if your team's not mature enough for Scrum, because Scrum does require you to have sprints and it requires you to do story points and whatnot, then company managed software Kanban is your next best bet, because the Kanban is going to be streamlined for and being able to leverage the power of Jira, but not necessarily have to have the discipline and the rigor of Scrum. And so those are going to be the two options that I recommend. Now, aside from that, if your team's just looking for a task tracker, Jira Work Management is basically Trello inside of Jira. And so that'll be a simple just task tracker there. If you're looking for a help desk, your Jira Service Management is there. And then if you're looking for idea for a brainstorming board, somewhere to kind of nurture ideas, then Jira Product Discovery is going to be your bet there. The only thing that we don't have access to is Jira Align, because you need like $1 million to be able to use that. And so we don't really talk about Jira Align at all, so especially since Atlassian doesn't really make it feasible or something that is attainable by the common folk like you and me. Yeah, so that's anyway. So we got some conversations going here. We got another story. Can a story exist without a parent? Absolutely. A story is a regular issue type. As you can see here on this side, right? The story has a 0. If I can get to the S's here. Where are the S's? Here we go. The story has a 0. And so because of that, it can exist as a regular issue type. It's when you look at the subtask, their number is -1. It doesn't show it here, but trust me when I tell you it's a -1. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Going back to the S's, sub. Nope. Okay, so it's not going to show it to me. But yeah, here it is. I saw it. Here we go. They're -1. So these items with the -1 can never exist without a parent. Everything else, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever you create, all of that can exist without a parent. How are issue types higher than an epic tied to epics? They are tied, Joseph. They are tied via the parent. So this is that I made a very subtle comment. I said that over the last year and a half, Atlassian has been making some drastic changes, and they're finally kind of like at a position where it's just the parent and that's it. The parent dictates who your parent is up above, right? So you can go above the epic. So you can go to the initiative, to a theme, to a project, to a portfolio, to whatever you want. You can keep going up, and just leverage that parent field. Can we move a subtask from one story to another? Yes, you can. You need to have the move permission. You need again, this is a little bit more advanced, but you need to have the ability to have the move power And as long as you do that, you can click move and you can call out who the new parent is. All right. So with that said, we're going to jump into workflows. So now that we've covered issue types, let's talk a little bit about workflows and let's see what we got going on with the workflows. So we're going to cover statuses. We're going to talk about the all out, all transition. We're going to talk about transitions and the board columns, and then a couple of other things. So that's going to take us for the next 10 minutes. I'm going to try to be as streamlined as I can and try not to waste too much time. But as you can see, I love talking. And so as many questions as you have, please do let me know, because I do, as you saw, I have 600 videos. So if you guys have questions, there is no shortage of content for me to make and or talk about. So we can definitely ask away, because I can follow up at a later time with you all. All right, so let's jump into workflows. So the workflows is very important, right? Because now that we have issue types, now that we kind of know what things we want to track, and I'm going to leave this for a second. The next thing that you want to worry about is, because at this point we've impacted the create, right? We've impacted what can be created. But once it's created, it's going to be visible on a board. And this is right here where teams spend like 95% of their time, the users at least, not the Jira admins, but the users are going to spend like 95% of the time in this board. And so how do we manipulate this? How do we change the name from backlog or selected for development or progress or done, right? Like, how do we alter this? And this is how this is done by manipulating the workflows, because I simply cannot add a column, right? I can't go in here, configure board. I mean, technically I can. I just don't like doing it this way because it's limiting, right? But I have the ability to come in here into the board and click on this little plus sign and add something like code review, right? And I can add the column, and of course it's going to add it, right? It's going to add it, and it's going to be in there, and I have a code review, and awesome. But I don't have any control. I don't have any authority over how it behaves, why it behaves, where it behaves. And so to do that, we want to not do columns here, right? Because again, it's very easy to do it, but it's not the right way. We want to, in fact, go to the gear, go to issues, and we want to go to workflows. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into that workflow for that project. Now, if you're like me, I am really horrible. I'm like Finding Nemo. I do not remember things, and I am really, really bad. EKD, let's try EKD. I'm really bad at remembering something that I just saw. And so here we are. Here's the workflow for the project that we were just looking at. And if I click on actions and I click on edit, I'm going to basically bring in what they call the workflow editor. And this, my friends, is where all the magic happens. As you can see, my code review has been added, and it's really, really easy to add statuses by either just clicking that little plus button. But the correct way that you want to do it is to come into here, and whenever you want to add a status is essentially a column, right? It's, as you saw in that brief demonstration, you're basically creating a column or a step in your process that you want to highlight and call out. And so we can click on this add status, and we can add new statuses. So there's a drop down, right? These are all the statuses that are available in my Jira. And so I can do stuck. Let's just do stuck, and I can click add. Wow, that is really hard to see. Let's remove that, and let's add a better one. Let's see if maybe blocked is not taken up. No, okay, so I don't have blocked. So let me just add blocked as a status. It's a very popular one, right? And so blocked is a pretty popular status that a lot of teams used to like to use. I personally don't like it. There's different ways, but again, different course for a different day. But you'll see here, it says new status because it doesn't exist. So anytime that you want to create a new status, you have two options. You can completely make a brand new status, in which case it's going to tell you, hey, this is a new status. Or you can make a new status to the board or to the workflow, which is picking from the available list. So any of these would be considered a new status to this particular workflow. So I'm going to add blocked, and I'm just going to do both, right? It's basically a new status. And when you click on it, it becomes a status, and now I can click add. Now, when you do this, because it's a brand new status, it's going to ask you for a couple more things. And so obviously we have the name, we have a description. I never put descriptions, shame on me. And then we have the category. This part's, I want to say, is important, but it's something you have to fill out. And so think of it this way. You only have 3 categories. And essentially all this category button does is it determines the color of that status. So it determines if it's going to be gray, blue, or green. And it's gray if no work is being done, right? If your status represents work just being idle, sitting, nobody's touching it, and it's kind of just in a hover state, kind of like blocked, then it might be a gray status. If the work is in motion, right? Code review, we're still moving things, we're still activities are being done, then you want in progress. And then when the work comes to a resting state, when it's done, like you're accepted, you're delivered, you're deployed, these are all great statuses where work has come to a rest and we are done with the work. Well, that's when you're going to want to pick the category you're done. Now, I like to think that blocked is still work in motion because somebody's still actively working on it. We're going to make it blue. You'll notice that there's this checkbox here. Allow all statuses to transition to this, and it gets cut off. We'll talk about that in a second. But if I hit create, you'll notice that I have my status. But check this out. If I go back to my project, the new compound, and this is why this is where you start separating like the rookies from like the beginners, right? Because this is where things start getting a little bit more interesting. You'll notice that it's not in here, right? My block status isn't in here. And if I go into my configure board here on the right, and I go to the columns, just the way I added blocked earlier, you'll notice that there's no blocked here, no blocked here. And if I scroll to the right, no blocked. I'm like a magician, no tricks up my sleeves, right? It's all like true here. And the reason that is a couple of things, but number one is this status isn't in part of the workflow. There's no transition to it. So just to have a status like this doesn't do you any good. In fact, you must add a transition to it. Otherwise, Jira will just ignore it. And you have two ways of adding transitions in a workflow. The easiest way is to simply click on this checkbox. It says, allow all statuses to transition to this one. And this will give it this dash all here. Now, this is the easiest way, but it's also the way that most teams have a really hard time with, because this way gives the team autonomy and freedom to change from any status to any other status, which is good when you have a disciplined team, and it's bad when you don't trust your team, because it's easy for me to have something in my backlog and move it straight to done and bypass the entire process. And when you do that, it kind of defeats the purpose of using Jira. So a lot of teams like to circumvent that problem by introducing or adding explicit transitions. So instead of this all, right, instead of this transition here, you explicitly grab a line. So you put your mouse over a status and you drag it over to another circle. And now you're going to do like issue blocked. And you click add. Now, there's a 99% chance that it's not going to work. So bear with me, folks. And it doesn't. So there it is, right? But that's all you got to do. When you do that, and we'll talk about why it didn't work. I already knew it wasn't going to work, but I'll talk to you about why it didn't work in a second. But when you do that, essentially all that happens is that there's a line that is drawn between the two with a verb, a transitionary text that allows you to change from this status to this status. And before I talk about why it didn't like it, the one thing I want you to know that when you go down that path, when you go down the path of explicitly calling out your transitions, if you do not have an arrow, so that means if I'm going straight down, if my arrows go straight down, and you make a mistake, you want to go back, if there is no arrow to go back, right? If you don't have an arrow going back this way, it will not be possible for you to move there, right? So you always have to create the arrows for every path and every permutation you want to do. This is good because now your teams have a critical path that they have to follow. This is bad from a Jira admin because now you just created an Etch-a-Sketch, right? And so your workflow start looking like an Etch-a-Sketch, right? So if you've ever seen one of these, right, this is what your workflow start looking like. Like this, right? They're just lines upon lines upon lines, and it becomes very, very, very hard to manage, like very hard. And so this is what a lot of workflows start looking like. So I like to tell my teams, if whenever possible, stick with this allow all transitions, because this is the easiest way to do it. But if you absolutely need, because your team's just not disciplined enough, then consult with a professional, because you want to make sure that your transitions are clean, organized, and effective. Okay, now why did I get that error? So essentially, I don't know. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know why Atlassian does that. I wish that message was a little bit more informative. But essentially, the reason why that I know of, or that I can conjure up, or at least the cause, it's not really the reason, but the cause of that error is because I tried to add a transition to a status on an active workflow. And all that means is that this workflow right now is an active workflow. It means that a Jira project today, right now, in this moment in time, is using this project. And Jira, for whatever reason, does not let me make that kind of a manipulation. The other thing that Jira will not let me do is delete a status. So if I wanted to delete this code review, if I hit this remove status, it will not let me. So adding these transitions and deleting statuses are two things that I cannot do from an active workflow. So naturally, you're going to ask yourself, well, Alex, how do we make it not active? Well, to do that, you have to do a couple things. You want to grab this text. I like to copy it. You click back on workflows over here and you find it like this. And then you click on actions and you make a copy of it. When you make a copy of a workflow, you will immediately be taken to an inactive workflow, which there you can do anything. This is like a blank page. You can add statuses, remove statuses, add transitions, delete transitions, do whatever you want. There are no limits until you make that workflow active again, right? And so just be mindful of that. Now, I'm not actually going to make a copy because, again, I'm trying to do this as beginner and I'm running out of time. And so we're just going to simply go back to that workflow and we're going to publish that workflow. So I'm going to go back to my edit. I'm going to add that block status, but I'm going to add that block status with only just the way it is right here. Now that I have this status, right, and I go back to my board and I'm going to do a quick refresh, you'll notice that that block status is still nowhere to be seen. Again, still no trick up my sleeve, right? So where is that block status? Well, this is something that catches everybody, so I wanted to call it out. But if you scroll up just a little bit, you'll see this publish draft button. If you click on that, always click no. I've done like a million of these. I've never hit yes, not once, but hit the publish button there. And once you do that, then you'll notice that it's active. And now if I hit refresh over here, you'll notice that my status is unmapped. I haven't made a column for it. So all I need to do is go over to the right, click this plus button over here, type in blocked, and my status that was unmapped is now in my mapped one. Now, if you just want to change the order, you can just drag it and drop it like this. What I will tell you is that this is it. Like this is as easy as it is. And so, yeah, so once you do that, you click the back to board and that's pretty much it. My block status is here and now I can move an item into blocked and it's now part of the workflow. As you can see, it's a lot more involved. The code review took a millisecond to create. The block, though, as you can see, I just wanted to highlight all the different intricacies. And we didn't even touch, this is me just touching the surface, right? This is not even getting involved in any way, shape, or form, but this is just a teaser of what's possible. There's so many more things that, again, you want to check out one of these more advanced ones. I do believe I have a workflow one. Again, sorry, I apologize. It sounds very sales pitchy. It's all free. I have an hour to teach you guys how to use Jira. It's a very impossible task that Atlassian has given me. So I have it augmented with Jira video. So check out somewhere in here. There's a workflows one. I got to find it. Where is it? If anybody sees it. Oh, here it goes. Jira workflows, 0 to hero. Check that one out. 14,000 views. This helps quite a few people. So definitely go check out those videos. Again, not trying to like divert yourself or pitch you my videos or my courses, right? But the nature of the beast is I got 59 minutes to teach you how to use Jira, and that is a very impossible task to do. So that's all we'll talk about workflows. We're going to go over and talk about custom fields, okay? Because when you aren't creating issue types, when you aren't creating workflows, the next thing you're doing is you're creating custom fields. Now, custom fields are cool. Every field in Jira, so what is a field? So when you go create an issue, you have the summary, you have the parent, you have the component, description, reporter. These are all default fields that are made available, right? And so your team is typically populating, right? They'll type in these values in here and they will they'll fill it out, right? And when you fill out this data and you go into your project, then you have work. And so that's how you create the work, right? You're essentially capturing a title, the summary, who's assigned to it, who's responsible for working on it, who's the reporter, right? And so it's very, 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 very common that your team's going to want to capture something else. They're going to want specific information like acceptance criteria, definition of done, who knows, right? And they can literally ask for anything. Now, very similar to that issue type caution that I gave you earlier, right? This is where it's hard. This is the hardest part of your job, is because your team is going to literally ask you for everything. They're going to ask you for the dumbest things in the world. And some of them are going to be really good things. So you want to be very mindful. You want to be very careful and coach and guide your team, because there's some mistakes that you can do here. It's very easy to make mistakes in here. Not technical mistakes, but make behavioral mistakes that you're going to regret later. So I'm going to try to coach you through what those mistakes are. So fundamentally, though, how do we add a custom field? Well, that's very easy. We're back in the gear, right? We're back in the gear. We're back in issues. You'll notice that down here under fields, there's a custom fields button. Now, we don't get into field configurations, because field configurations, in my opinion, even though it's a very basic thing, is very much in a more advanced thing. As a beginner, if you're writing notes down, as a beginner, avoid messing with your field configurations, because you have the opportunity to completely block and stop Jira for your team. You have the ability to like basically break Jira. So as a beginner, I would avoid field configurations. I was very intentional in leaving it out. But custom fields, those are easy. Okay. And so custom fields, creating a custom field is very, very easy, very, very trivial. My 5-year-old can do this. So all you got to do, again, you come to the custom fields and you click on the create custom field. That's it. Hard part is, what kind of custom field do you want to create? And this is not something that you as the administrator need to worry about, but rather you should let your team know, right? The person that's requesting these custom fields, you should let them know what their options are. So a couple of options that you have available are checkboxes, your date pickers, your date time pickers. I don't recommend this one. I don't recommend date time picker, because most people don't timestamp with an actual time, but rather the date's just enough. You have labels. Don't recommend making this one. You have a number field. This one's great, except it only likes numbers and periods. And so if you're going to add like commas or dollar signs or any, basically any character that's not a number or a period, it ain't going to work. So this is great if you want to do arithmetic, because Jira, believe it or not, can do arithmetic. Again, come back for an advanced training here. Let me know in the comments if that's interesting to you. But arithmetic is technically possible. We have the paragraph, which is a very common one, is a big fat text box. We have radio buttons. We have a cascading select list, which basically means that the value in item 1, depending on what you pick there, is going to dynamically alter what values show up in the second set. And so this is cool, but the unfortunate reality is that it's only a 2 level, so you can only do 2 of them, right? And you can't do 3. Whoa, sorry about that. That's welcome to Apple. Right? So you only have 2 tiers, right? So you can't do a 3 or 4, right? So this is very limiting from that respect. You have a multiple choice one, which is pretty common, but the one that I create every single day, 100 times a day, select list single choice. This is basically a drop down. This is going to be the most popular option in my opinion, because again, out of all the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of fields that I've made, single select is like 80% of them. So I'm going to select list, but I'm just going to keep going down the list. You do have a short text box, you have a URL, and you have a user picker. Now keep in mind that your user picker, the user must be a licensed user. So you just can't randomly pick people in your Jira. They must have a Jira license. So anyways, let's pick the select list. And when you click next, you got to give it a name. So I'm going to call this favorite fast, I don't know, maybe favorite burger type. I'm going to call it hamburger, cheeseburger. Are there others? Bacon cheeseburger? Sorry for all the folks that don't eat burgers. I'm very hungry. And so maybe you can do a veggie burger, right? And so you add these options. It's really easy to add options. And when you do that, you just simply click create. Now, once you hit that create button, once you do that, then you have the ability to then pick what screen this is going to go on. Now, this is a chicken and egg situation. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually scroll all the way down to the bottom, because like I said, chicken and egg, one comes before the other. And so I'm just going to click update. You don't actually have to pick anything. But now my field exists, right? So if I type in favorite, you're going to see that I have my favorite burger type and my favorite Tesla model. In the comments, let me know which one's your favorite Tesla model. I'm just curious. I got a Model Y. Do you guys have a Tesla? Let me know. I'm very, very curious. Totally unrelated, but just very curious if anybody has a Tesla in the chat. Let me know in the chat. Okay. But you'll notice that the project is none and the context is one, but the screens doesn't tell me anything. Because if I look up at another one, you'll see that we have 2 screens, 14 screens, 51 screens, right? 16 screens. So how do we do this, right? And what exactly is a screen? Well, as I mentioned, this is a chicken and egg situation. The fields are just a menu option, right? They're just an entree that you can purchase to eat. Okay, going back to my buffet example. But the plate in which you put your food on, that is called the screen. And so you come over here to the screen section. Again, same section. You still go to issues, gear, issues, and now we're in screens. And you're able to manipulate the plate, and you're able to manipulate which fields you're going to put on that plate. Now, let's stick to my Kanban example. And so if we're in here in this EKD, I'm gonna add my favorite Tesla and favorite cheeseburger to this screen. And so this right here, this white screen that we're looking at, that is the screen. That is the plate upon we're gonna put the fields onto. And so to do that, we're gonna look up EKD. Now, every Jira project, when you create it, automatically gets this bug and default screen. And we're just gonna we typically you got to do it both, right? So you're gonna do it. I start with the default one. And in here, we're going to go all the way to the bottom, and I'm going to do favorite burger type. And I'm going to type in favorite Tesla model. And when I do that, now when I hit the create button and I go all the way down to the bottom, you'll notice that my favorite burger type and Tesla model are not visible. Now check this out. If I select bug, it's gone. It's not there. And the reason that is because there's a different screen. And so every issue type, and something I haven't mentioned yet, but worth mentioning, is every issue type has the ability to have a unique screen each, and a unique workflow, and a unique field configuration, which, if you're remembering, is basically this over here that we looked at. And this, again, my friends, is why we started with the issue types at the beginning, because what I just said is every issue type has the ability to have its own unique workflow, its own unique field configuration, and its own unique screen. And this is very, very important because it's more of I would say it's a super advanced topic, right? This is like Jira level 300, and we're in a Jira 101 class, right? But being able to manipulate this is very important for you to understand, and definitely come back and let me know in the future. Let me know in the chat if you would like to know more about this stuff, so that we can, again, I can work with that last in here to make better and more effective trainings for you. But this right here is critical, right? And so when we go back to the screens, you want to make sure that the bug is going to have it too, then, right? And so we're just going to go into the bug one and add it. Okay, favorite. Now, when you create custom fields, right? So I'm going to just create my custom field here, and I'm going to do this associate to screens here. When you get to the custom field, right? When you make a custom field and you get to this screen, it's important for you to remember or to know which screen it's going to go on, because if you do that, then you can save yourself a step and just simply click on these 2 checkboxes. And then when you get to the bottom, you can hit update, and then that's it. So now when I hit the create button, that field, that access level that I just looked at, is now visible, right? And so you saw that all I did was click a checkbox. So there's 2 ways to add a field to a screen. You either go straight into the screen and add it at the bottom like I did, or when you're creating the field, you check the right checkbox. But again, it requires you to know which screen, and it requires for the screen to exist already. And sometimes you don't do things in the right order. So my recommendation is always make the screen, even though it's blank, because when you go eat, right, you have a blank plate anyways. Not like you walk up to a buffet line with food already on your plate. You're going to grab a new plate and then you're going to put food on it, right? And so it's kind of weird to walk up to the buffet line and go, I already have a plate full of food. Let me add more, right? So usually you're going to start blank anyway. So follow that tip. So that is the screens and the custom field. So at this point, we have come to the end, my friends. We have made it to the very end of my training. So a couple of things for you to consider here is definitely Follow me on LinkedIn. If you're looking for the LinkedIn link, you got to scan that QR code there, right? But follow me on LinkedIn. You can also send me a friend request or a connection request. I am very behind. I have like 500 pending. So just let me know if you are going to do an actual connection request. Let me know you took the class so that I know that it's you and not just, somebody trying to hire me. Make sure you subscribe to ATech Tech Tutorials. As you saw, almost 600 videos. Make sure you go on there and smash that subscribe button over there. And most importantly, I'm just going to echo this from the beginning. Subscribe to the Jira Life. We are, I don't know. I want to check and see. Let me see how many we are. Let's do this live with everybody here, right? So the Jira Life. We were 109. So look at that. We crossed over. We're 911. So we're, I don't know. I don't know how to do public math. 89 away from hitting 1,000. So if you're watching this and you haven't yet subscribed to the Jira Life, this is the channel that you're on. Let me tell you a little bit about what the Jira Life is. It's basically it's a podcast that the Jira guy and I we put together every single week, and we basically talk to members of the Atlassian community and get to know them a little bit better. We recently did a 24-hour live stream, which was fun. But the Jira Life is a place for if you're new to the Jira environment and you're looking for a home, you're looking for a community, you're looking for people that are struggling and having the same problem that you're having, the Jira Life is the place for you to be in. So definitely take a second here to subscribe to the Jira Life. Help us get to 1,000 subscribers. As you can see, we're like 80 something away, and so it's really really exciting. So we can only get there if you help us out. And so make sure you take all your accounts, all your YouTube accounts, and smash the subscribe button. I also have some free courses available on Salto. So again, link there in the QR code is going to take you to my free courses. But if you want to take your skills to the next level, check out those free courses. Check out my full 5-hour course that I have on Udemy. This is an affordable, cheap course that you can take on Udemy. It's really, really for Scrum Masters or for beginners of Jira users. But in the coming months, I am going to be releasing a Jira admin, and I do plan on having like a 12-hour version of what you just learned today. So make sure you come back around for that. And yeah, let me know if you're interested in any instructor-led courses. I can help teach you, your team, your company, whoever you want. And finally, check out the merch store. I'm not wearing it today. It's a little early for me. I just got it out and started doing this, but we have a merch store on the Jira Life. So if you want to support the channel, if you want to support what I'm doing here, definitely check out the merch store. So with that said, folks, thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate you being here. I don't see any other new questions, so I will stick around for a couple minutes. So if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Otherwise, we'll see you soon. So I will stick around, like I said, for a couple of minutes here um, to do courses or questions. So any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. No questions. All right. Well, you guys have access to the experts here. Definitely make sure you smash the subscribe button. Thank you to everybody that did. Thank you so much for helping us get over 911. We are at 912. So thank you to that last person that subscribed. You mean the world to me, and I'm eternally grateful. Let's just find 70 more people. Can we remove issue links from an issue? Okay, first let's start with this one. So am I going to Teams 24? Yes, I am absolutely going to Teams 24. I'm going to be putting together some sort of like a Calendly. So if anybody wants to meet up, there are going to be opportunities for meetup. And so I'm going to be doing a lot of live videos. So if you want to come give me your 2 cents, or if you want to come and say hi, definitely stop by. I'm going to be somewhere. I don't know where yet. I'm going to be in a lot of different places, but keep your ear out. I'll try to make it well known, and definitely follow me on social media. I'm going to be updating my location and letting people know. So if you guys want to get together, definitely follow me on like LinkedIn so you know where I'm at. Can we remove issue links from an issue? Yes, you can. So you can simply go into an issue that has a link, right? And so you can see this one's linked. And if you hover, you don't have to click on it, but if you hover, you will see that there's an X, and that will allow you to unlink it. So Sharvani, hopefully that answers your question. All right, folks. Well, we are at the top of the hour. So again, thank you very much. And again, if you have any questions, even for the replay, ask away. I do review these videos, and I will be making follow-up videos. And finally, thank you to everybody subscribed to the Jira Life. And if you haven't subscribed, now's your chance. Thank you, everybody, and I'll see you next month.